And welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the 2-Point Conversion NFL DFS podcast, your Week 17 edition. We finally made it to the end. Let me introduce my co-host, as always. You can find him on Twitter at Pater_DFS. James, how we doing, man?
I'm okay. Closing out the NFL season with probably one of the grossest slates that we've had all year. So it kind of feels like attrition has taken its hits more this year than years past. So it's just gross slate, but I'm ready to talk about it.
Yeah, we're going to go game by game as usual, but I was mentioning to James right before we got started. I might be a little more blunt than others. James might be blunt as well because there's a lot of teams that have no care in the world. There's a lot of teams just saying flat out, we're going to rest players. There's a lot of injuries. There's a lot of guys that have never set foot on a field that will play this weekend. And if you try to tell me you know exactly how they're going to play, you're full of shit. I'll play it pretty simple to you. So we'll give you the best analysis we can. I really emphasize this week. You could contact James, contact myself. I've mentioned we have a Slack chat that I'm a part of. Come join us because like last week when Newton went down, it was after the podcast. There's always news. There's going to be a ton of news this week, to ask questions about. So with that being said, James, let's kick off with they kind of spaced out the games at least. So the early games don't really have too much of an implication. Most of them are in the afternoon on Sunday. Kick it off with one we really don't care about. Dolphins at Bills. Bills 3.5-point home favorites up in Buffalo. The team total is roughly 39.5 in this one. It is a very, very ugly game, James, but there might be a couple fantasy assets here. What are you looking at?
Yeah, Josh Allen has been crushing it over the last couple of weeks. He had his worst fantasy output last week over the last 6, which was 13.68 fantasy points, but that's still pretty damn good. I mean, he's basically turned into what we were playing Deshaun Watson for earlier, where he's having, upwards of 75, 80 yards in rushing each game, which is really, really nice. He's not going to be a good quarterback, but he's probably the better quarterback between him and Lamar Jackson. So if you're going to be taking kind of a scrambling, I don't really care about their passing upside quarterback, it's going to be Josh Allen. The problem here, obviously, is that this game just sucks, man. That they might not score 30 points overall, and they might not run more than 45 plays each. It's just a really, really ugly game with bad coaches and bad players and bad teams, and it's really hard to judge. I think that the best play in this game by far is Josh Allen. The second best play is going to be Robert Foster, who had 7 targets last week, 4 receptions, only 52 yards, but he's been really consistent over the last 7 weeks. We have 4 fantasy outputs over 15 fantasy points, which is fantastic out of 6. So for 5,100, I think that you can go Josh Allen and Robert Foster, but the only real play in this game is going to be Josh Allen for me. I just don't like anything else going on here. I have no idea. I have to write about the Dolphins, and I have no idea what their actual plan is. Like, Kalen Ballage only had 6 touches last week after taking the majority of the load from Frank Gore when he went down. Kenyon Drake had 10 touches. Neither one of them did anything on the ground. Both averaged less than 4 yards per carry. It should be assumed that both of them are going to split carries, but we know that Gase wants to use one running back more and have one as a change of pace. So both are cheap enough that I think that you could probably take the shot on one of them, but I don't really have any interest there unless you're going to be really low exposure in MME.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. If you want to use Josh Allen, go for it. He's been a QB2 overall since week 13. He's been very, very good. You mentioned all the things about him. It's what we've wanted to see from Josh Allen. $6,000 is way more than what we were when we loved him in the mid-4 range. But on this slate, all things considered, it's a really good play. Playing at home, small favorite. He's going to I wouldn't be shocked if he runs for over 100 yards this game. I really wouldn't be. And then you can team him up with Robert Foster, just like you said. I think that's a really good look in that matchup. Robert Foster's he's either first or second in air yards since the last 3 weeks, since he's really come on the scene, 3 or 4 weeks. He's just crushing the ball. And Josh Allen, since he's been the number 2 quarterback since week 13, he is leading the NFL quarterbacks in air yards per attempt at over 11 air yards per attempt. So the offense is opened up. It's not sexy. Josh Allen's going to make some ugly, ugly throws. But when you break it down, like you said, you get Robert Foster for 51, you get Josh Allen for 6K. That looks pretty nice. There's nothing else I really want here at all because McCoy's going to play. He says he's going to play, but he's been banged up. Why play, really? There's nothing to play for in this game at all. No reason, period. So not exactly sure what they have in mind there, and that's as far as I'd go on that one. Falcons at the Tampa Bay Bucks. Tampa Bay minus 1.5 point favorites. Total is around 51 in this one. 51. This is going to be potentially one of the better games fantasy-wise for two teams that have nothing to really play for at all. Because when you look at the Tampa Bay Falcons, yes, they are both screwed. So what do you like in this one, James?
Dude, the problem with this one is that, like, yeah, you want to stack this up, but the coaches are saying that Ryan Griffin might get snaps at quarterback. So there is no certainty on Tampa Bay outside of, like, Mike Evans. That's it. That's the only play that I, like, have any confidence in on this side. Chris Godwin is thin because Adam Humphries has been picking up so much of the slack coming out of the slot. I think he had 12 targets last week, which makes him a decent play. But I guess it depends on how you feel about Ryan Griffin. You can't use the quarterback, so you can't stack the Tampa Bay side. You can use the Atlanta side if you think that Julio Jones is healthy enough and cares enough to play. But, like, he didn't practice on Thursday. He has a hip and a rib injury. So without anything to play for, why would he play? It doesn't make any sense. So if he plays, he's going to be banged up. And we know that Julio Jones is like a really expensive car where if it's not at 100%, you don't want to drive it. You don't want to take it anywhere. So I wouldn't have any interest in Julio Jones this week. I hope that he sits because then we can at least get Mohamed Sanu and Calvin Ridley at relatively cheap. I would prefer Mohamed Sanu at 4,800, but Calvin Ridley is kind of the bigger play guy, so I guess you can use either one of them. You might actually, if Julio Jones does miss this game, be able to go Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, and Mohamed Sanu, and I like that. But at the same time, why bother? I mean, I don't know. This game has so many questionables, and the only thing I really feel comfortable about is Mike Evans. And if Julio Jones misses, I like Mohamed Sanu. But other than that, I just don't want any interest in this one.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple here as well. When I started prepping for this yesterday, the Ryan Griffin news was not out yet. I'm like, oh, this looks great. Yes, and then the Ryan Griffin news comes out. Deshaun Jackson's already saying he wants traded or out of Tampa Bay, which I don't blame him personally. The reason why I think Godwin's numbers weren't great last week, still 6 targets, is Deshaun Jackson actually came back and started and then left the game. So we know when Deshaun's out, Godwin is a very good play at $4,300. But do you trust Griffin? I think there's other spots to go. This is a week. Don't get cute. Like, really don't. Like, there's a couple spots if you want to take a value starting running back or whatever because you know he's going to get touches, fine. I wouldn't be getting too cute on some of these games. I don't mind the Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu. Ridley, 5 targets last week. You mentioned his big boom upside. You got Mohamed Sanu had 8 targets last week, had a big game. We've always been pretty pro Sanu on this podcast. So I think that's definitely an option here. And then if you just need a tight end just to punt with this week, Austin Hooper is not a horrible option. When we go through this slate, the tight end is ugly. Like, if you're not paying for one of the top 3 guys, you are really going to be grasping at some weird straws this week. And Hooper did have 9 for 71 and a touchdown when he faced these guys earlier this year. So I think that's definitely an option if you need to go somewhere else. But all in all, out of the early games, this one seems like the most fun. At least it did until the news about Griffin came out. So then it kind of shakes it up a little bit. All right, Dallas at the New York Giants. Dallas at the Giants is where we'll go on this one. Before we get into the spreads and everything, I will let you know that the Cowboys have already locked in the 4 seed. There's nothing they can do at all. And it's typical already. Jerry's telling everybody, hey, we're going to play everybody. Don't worry about it. But we heard that a few times back. He didn't. But there's a chance they rest most. I wouldn't want to be getting guys hurt before a bye week. So keep an eye on that news before it all comes down. But what do you got on this one, James?
Yeah, we've seen Dallas say they're going to play everybody before, and I think it was Ezekiel Elliott started, like all of them started, but then they all went a couple series and then were pulled and didn't play the rest of the game. But it does kind of give a nice little thing here. I know that you said not to be cute, but if you can get Ezekiel Elliott at really low ownership at $9K against the Giants, that's intriguing. It's not like great.
Let me specify cute. I mean cute by like your punt options, not cute. Ezekiel Elliott's awesome. I'm not going to knock you for that at all.
Yeah, it's just it's hard for me. Like neither one of these teams has anything to play for, and the pieces of the puzzle are for this game specifically are the only pieces that matter for the teams. It's not like Atlanta where Julio Jones might play because there are other people around him that can still pick up the slack. If Ezekiel Elliott plays the entire game, he's going to touch the ball 35 times. If Saquon Barkley touches the ball or plays the entire game, he's going to touch the ball 35 times. But the question is whether they're going to touch the ball that many times and only play one series, two series, whatever, then you're dead in the water. I think in GPPs, there is reason to go with Ezekiel Elliott or Saquon Barkley. But I wouldn't touch them in cash games with a 10-foot pole. It's not a situation that we have any certainty on. We know that Dallas is probably going to rest their players, but in GPPs, I think that it's worth it to maybe take a couple shots. If you have a bunch of lineups, just throw in a couple of Ezekiel Elliott's or Saquon Barkley's, maybe some Amari Cooper, but don't expect them to play the entire game because I don't think that they will.
Yeah, you pretty much hit it there. There's so much fun in this game because OBJ might miss again. So you got guys like Sterling Shepard, who exploded last week. Like we've always said, without OBJ, he's a great play. Evan Ingram, the past 2 weeks without OBJ, has been outstanding. Like, if anybody's going to play for anything, it will be the Giants side. I'll put it that way, than the Cowboys side. So you can maybe get some bad defensive players out there against some of these Giants players if you need to go that way. Again, is it too cute or not? Is the question. But Ingram and Shepard do have nice options in this attack. By no means would I stack this game. I'm not saying go Eli, Shepard, Ingram. But Shepard, Ingram would be like one-offs for you. I do like the Zeke and Sterling Shepard or Saquon Barkley takes you mentioned. But yeah, 6-point favorites. The Giants are 6-point home favorites. That tells you everything you know in this one. Definitely one to stay away from at all costs, basically.
I will say really quick about what you said about the Giants side. I like the Giants side is safer, but last year they benched Eli Manning in the Week 17 game, and in comes Emmanuel. And I just think, like, I know that they've said that they want him to continue being the quarterback for like however many years because they're apparently brain dead, but there's just so much, especially like as 6-point home favorites. If they're 6-point home favorites and they're losing 14-0 after one quarter, Eli's getting pulled. They're not going to let him continue through the game. And if Eli gets pulled, then you can't trust any of this offense. I mean, I know that he's really, really bad, but he has the repertoire with Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram that the backup quarterbacks don't. So it's just I just wanted to throw out that caution really quick. The Giants side is safer, but by no means is it safe.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Let's go Carolina at the New Orleans Saints. Somehow the Saints are still 8-point home favorites. The total is 44 in this one. But the Saints have locked up the #1 seed, home field advantage in the NFC. They're already going to rest their starters. They already said Teddy Bridgewater, Dwayne Washington are going to get heavy roles in this game. So it might be like a preseason game where the Saints starters get like 1 or 2 series at the most, and then here come the backups the whole game. So this is where the cute aspect comes in, James. Do we say, okay, let's take a value on some of these guys, or we just say screw it all together? What's your thoughts on Carolina, New Orleans?
Bro, I think you play Tre'Quan Smith is what you do. Like, at 3,700, he's going to be probably the wide receiver 1 in this offense once Michael Thomas comes off the field. It's going to be between, let's see, Tre'Quan Smith, Ted Ginn Jr., who's still beat up, and I don't know why he would play the entirety of this game, Christian Kirkwood, and Austin Carr would be the main wide receivers that come in once Michael Thomas is done and not playing the rest of this game. I think Tre'Quan Smith's a fantastic play. He's probably one of my favorite value plays on this slate since we know, and Sean Payton has come out and said that the starters weren't going to play this entire game. I can have the certainty in knowing that Tre'Quan Smith, who's a rookie and a very good rookie and has been very good when he has a full role, is going to come in and be like the guy for this team, especially with Carolina having nothing to play for either. They might play a couple backups in their secondary as well. I like that. So 3,700, Tre'Quan Smith is a really, really good play, in my opinion. Regarding the starters, they're all just too expensive for me to really want any part of them. Like, you could go with Mark Ingram, but at 5,300, you basically have to hope that he scores all the touchdowns for the starters. and they score at least 2 touchdowns for him to be worth a damn. But I don't really have any interest there. It's really going to be Dwayne Washington at 3K if you want to go that route. Now, the Saints have been very, very run heavy with Ingram and Kamara back. But before Ingram was back, they were very pass heavy. So what is this offense going to look like with neither Kamara and Ingram? That's the question here. The question is whether they actually want to give Dwayne Washington 20 touches. I don't think that they do. I think that they would rather do like a quick passing game, utilize Teddy Bridgewater's accuracy, utilize his legs, just kind of slow it way down and not try to take this young running back that doesn't have much like real exposure to being the lead guy. I don't think that they're going to want to use him in that role. So at 3K, he's a good cash game play. I don't think he's a very good GPP play. I don't think he has a lot of upside. On the other side for Carolina, it's pretty gross, man. I don't want to play Kyle Allen. He's 4K, though, against the Saints, who we know aren't going to play their starters the entire game. So 4K is egregiously cheap for a quarterback. That's like running back 3 on some teams. So at 4K, he has a lot of upside here. I'm sure he's going to be like the chalk cash game quarterback because of his price. And I don't hate that at all, but I don't think that he has a lot of upside in that same regard. I'll wait for your thoughts on that, but I personally don't like him very much. And then they already said that they're probably not going to play Christian McCaffrey a lot. They're probably not going to play a lot of Devin Funchess, but I do think that we'll probably get a pretty decent look at Curtis Samuel at 4,200. DJ Moore at 4,500 is perfectly fine as well. It just kind of depends on how good of a quarterback you think Kyle is, right?
Yeah, that's the big question. Is yes, he's a professional quarterback. Yes, he's $4,000. I just don't know if I want to do it. I really like it. It's terrifying. There's some other guys I'd probably rather go to. I understand what you're saying with $4,000. It is just stupid cheap, especially for like your cash game bills for a floor and everything. And he's going to be facing a backup defense for a lot of the game in New Orleans. So, he could have a pretty good, 15-plus point game, and at 4K, he'd be through the moon with that. So I don't hate it. I think it matched up with Curtis Samuel definitely in play. I think it hurts with no CMC, obviously. That doesn't that's Captain Obvious stuff there. But that's what helped Heineke, or however you pronounce it, last week quite a bit, is he was dumping it off the CMC all day long. So not having that could be interesting. Maybe we find out who the pass receiving backup running back is for Carolina. That could be a sneaky play. But I like the idea on the New Orleans side of Traquan Smith at 37. Kirkwood still had a full role with four targets last week. That could get an increase at 33, so I don't hate him either as kind of a low floor with a little upside, not a ton, but a little upside. And then I love the Washington at 3K call. He's not going to have a huge ceiling, but the floor is going to be pretty nice there in this game where they're going to want to get it done because Teddy Bridgewater is not a joke of a quarterback. He's a very good backup quarterback. So the Saints offense should still move the ball. I think that's why that 8-point spread is where it is, because Vegas isn't stupid. They know the Saints are sitting their players, and it's still an 8-point spread for a reason. So I do agree with your Saints takes, and the Carolina side is tough for me. It's just really tough for me in this one. And one other value play, if reports start coming out, I'm not saying it's a must at all, but we've seen it in games previously. He's been getting like 2 targets a game, but I'm guessing they won't use Ben Watson much. Dan Arnold at $2,500 could be a super cheap tight end. Carolina's been getting exposed at the tight end position this season. So it's a crazy play. It might be too cute, but definitely something to look at $2,500 if you want to squeeze some other things in. We go Lions at the Packers. Packers are 8.5-point home favorites. The total is a whopping 45.5, it looks like. And there's really nothing to play for here. Both teams are done. The only thing they're playing for here is Aaron Rodgers to win another game at Lambeau this season. Devontae Adams is beat up. Lots of injuries that you're looking at here. So what are you liking on this one, James?
Oh, not much, Bubba. Not much. I mean, with Devontae Adams questionable, it really opens up a lot of the offense for Green Bay. Jimmy Graham is questionable as well with knee thumb. I mean, he practiced limited capacity, but he's been practicing limited capacity for a while now. So it's rough. If Devontae Adams misses, which he probably won't, because he does have incentive to play here. He's like 120 some odd yards away from the all-time Packers wide receiver record for most receiving yards in a season. So he's questionable, but I know that he wants to get there. So if he can log a practice, I don't have any problem playing Davante Adams. But if he misses this game, then we're looking at a questionable Randall Cobb, questionable ESB. Marquez Valdes-Scantling would probably be a really, really good play at 3,900. I know that some people are into this Jake Kumaro guy. 3 targets, 3 receptions last week for 68 yards and a touchdown. He was good in the preseason. I don't think that I have much interest there, but people like him, so I feel like he's probably going to be more popular than he should be. But it really just hinges on Davante Adams for this game, because you don't want any of the Lions. I mean, you don't want any part of Matthew Stafford. You can take Kenny Golladay if you want at 6,600. He had 15 targets last week, but Matt Stafford and this offense have been so brutally inefficient that there's just not much hope that he's going to do anything with those 15 targets. But yeah, boiling it down, Davante Adams, if he plays, he's my favorite play in this game. If not, it's going to be Marquez Valdes-Scantling at 3,900. And then Jamal Williams did really, really well last week. 15 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown with 9 targets for 6 receptions for 61 yards. My only thing here is that he averaged 6.3 yards per carry on the ground. That is by far his best mark of the entire season. This is somebody who has averaged much closer to 3.5 yards per carry than 6.5 yards per carry. So if you think that he is going to continue to be a good running back, like somebody who can actually contribute well, then I think that he's a fine play. If you think that he's going to regress back down to this 4.3, 4.2 yards per carry kind of guy with semi-decent target upside, then I don't know if I have interest in him at 6K. I think that there's other guys that have more to play for, that have a more secure role, and I just don't know if I would have interest there. But as 8-point home favorites against a team that isn't going to put up points, I do think that he's a great play just from volume. He should touch the ball like 20 times. I just don't know what he's going to do with it, and I kind of feel like there's other guys that might do better with their volume, if that makes any sense. But
no,
yeah,
it does.
It's really just Davante Adams and Jamal Williams if you want to go there.
Yep, pretty much nailed it. If Davante Adams does practice and he does play, and we've said it over and over again, there are a lot of really good receivers this year. There's not many that are as consistently, like you can just chalk in points between like a very small interval week in and week out with humongous upside at the same time. The floor is so consistent with Davante Adams. It's crazy. And like you mentioned, Rodgers is a guy that likes to go for records and things like that. So if even has an inkling that his own guy that's been helping him all year has 120 yards, whatever you said, Rodgers is going to know that. He's going to want to make it happen. Like that's just something Rodgers does.
That has actually been broadcasted by Rodgers too. Like Rodgers knows about it. He wants to get him there.
See, I don't even know that, but just knowing Rodgers the way he is, he wants that kind of stuff. He lives for that kind of stuff. He's super competitive, like any professional athlete should be, and he knows he can't get to the playoffs, so he's got to have something to play for. And you put that on the table to him, okay, you could probably double-digit targets coming Davante Adams' direction. Just keep feeding it that way. It's going to go in there. He might throw 2 picks, but he's going to keep feeding them. I'm not saying play Aaron Rodgers, but Davante is a great play. I do like Jamal Williams at 6K. It's a little murky, but like you said, he should get 20-plus touches. He got 15 carries, 9 targets, 6 catches last week. Yes, went to overtime, so big week. But even the week before that, at the Bears, very good defense. 12 for 55 on the ground, 4 catches for 42, still 19.7 DraftKings points. He's rushed for an average of 6.3 yards, 4.6, and 4.3 in his last 3. So, yes, not ideal, but right now the fact he's catching balls also is big for me. In the past, he wasn't the receiving back. He is the receiving back now with the Aaron Jones being gone. This opens things up for Jamal right now. So I do like him in this game at $6,000. The Lions just gave up 130 on the ground on 30 carries to the Minnesota Vikings last week. So I think there is definitely an opening in that one to go take a look at. But other than that, Lambeau leaps a few times for Davante Adams, hopefully, and that's about it. Ags at Texans. Texans 7-point home favorites in this one. The total is 40, another nice low total. Everybody and their mom is hurt in Jacksonville right now. Blake Bortles is back getting the start. when you break down importance in this game, the Texans need to, if they win, they clinch the AFC South. If they lose, the winner of the Colts or Titans clinch the South. The Texans, I believe, has clinched a playoff spot regardless. But basically, if they lose, they're like the 6th seed, and they're a wild card on the road. If they win the South. They host a game next week. Obviously, they want to win this game. James, what do you have on this one?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reason for Houston to win this game, and not very much like confidence that Jacksonville can even keep up with them. But it does bode well for somebody like DeAndre Hopkins, who is questionable this week, Kike Kute, who's questionable this week. Both limited in practice right now, but you expect both of them to play, and you expect both of them to be used the entire time, as long as Houston doesn't come out to like a 35-0 lead at halftime. And if they put up 35 points at halftime, then your guys have pretty much already done their job. So there's a lot of confidence in Houston in this week. Deshaun Watson at 6,600 is a great play. He had 40 attempts last week with 2 passing touchdowns and 49 yards with 2 rushing touchdowns. Did it all for him. So I think that he's healthy. I think that he looks good. He's playing well. I think he plays well at home against Jacksonville here. This is probably one of the better stacks on the week if you're looking through the games, just because of what they have to play for, and because we can really boil it down to who matters in this game. Like, Lamar Miller's not going to matter, so we don't have to worry about the running backs because we know they have 3 running backs who are healthy. It's pretty much just going to be DeAndre Hopkins. If Kiki Kute plays, then him, and then Deshaun Watson. So Houston, great stack. Like the stacking spot, like DeAndre Hopkins a lot, like Deshaun Watson a lot. On Jacksonville, don't play any Jacksonville players. On to you.
Bingo. See, this is why I'm glad we talked beforehand that this could be a very quicker than normal podcast, because there is stuff just not to touch. Fournette probably not going to play. So many guys banged up. Don't play Blake Bortles. Texans side, yes, they're going to want to win this game, and I think they're going to want to get a comfortable lead before they rest anybody because they don't want to go on the road in the playoffs. Very simple stuff here. So Deshaun Watson is a great play. He's been playing very, very well of late as he's healthy. He had 2 rushing touchdowns last week. He's actually starting to look like the Deshaun Watson of old. It's funny, when your knee's healthy, good things happen, and you don't have a collapsed lung and all kinds of other things going on. So I do like that a lot. And the DeAndre Hopkins, double-digit targets in each of his past 4 games, scored in 3 consecutive games. If anybody watched him last week, he was limping in the warm-ups. He came out healthy then in warm-ups, good to go. He was just a beast, an absolute beast. He made some catches like he does every week, and he gets forced the ball over and over and over again. So I think DeAndre is a phenomenal play this week. He's probably not going to practice all week, maybe slightly on the last day. He'll go through warm-ups. He should play. There's really no reason for him not to play. He's $8,100. You put him in there with Deshaun Watson at 66, like you said, and you rock and roll if you want this game. If you don't, there's a lot of good games in the afternoon, a ton of good games. But if you do, this is a really good stack here with Houston. And if one last guy I will mention, if you want to make it a little deeper stack to kind of make it different, because if people are on this game, it will be Deshaun. It will be DeAndre. You look at the likes of Jordan Thomas, their tight end. He only had 1 target last week, but prior to that was getting a lot of look in the red zone especially. So you could go a little different with him at $2,700. I guess one other guy I will mention, we'll leave it at that. I'm not going to get too cute. We'll keep it there. All right. Jets at New England, James. This is ugly. New England 13.5-point home favorites. The total is 44.5. New England, if they win, they get a first-round bye. I don't know about you, James, but I'm pretty sure Tom Brady would love a first-round bye, and they are 13.5-point favorites. What do you like here?
Yeah. I like Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman has been incredibly consistent, the only consistent part of the Patriots offense basically the entire year. The only bad mark on his entire resume this year has been a 9-point fantasy outing against Minnesota, where he only caught 3 out of his 8 targets. Other than that, been incredibly fantastic, been just as consistent as they come. 7,600 is not expensive enough for somebody with his floor. I love him if you're going to play cash games. And then he has plenty of upside, too, in tournaments, even though I like Chris Hogan more in tournaments at 3,600. I think that most people will The thing is, like, it can either be Chris Hogan or Philip Dorsett that takes the Josh Gordon targets. But Chris Hogan played 62 of 75 snaps last week, which makes sense that he would be the guy that would get the targets, but he didn't get any targets last week. So it's kind of a weird situation. At the same time, Brady only threw for 126 yards or something last week. They didn't have to throw at all. So I think this week they might try a little bit harder, but I do think that they're just trying to save Tom Brady for the playoffs. I don't think that this is a situation that I want to use Tom Brady or the pass catching options. Julian Edelman is about the only consistent thing that I think you can really pay for here. Rob Gronkowski at 5,100 is nice. Like, that's a really, really nice price, but I just don't think that they're trying to throw Tom Brady's arm off before the playoffs. I think they know that he's tired. I think they know that he's beat up. I think they know that he's 45 years old and trying to play QB in the NFL, and they'd rather just try to run it with Sony Michel and Rex Burkhead. That being said, $5,200 Sony Michel seems like a pretty good price. He had 18 attempts for 116 yards last week and a touchdown. Against the Giants in Week 12, he had 21 attempts for 133 yards and a touchdown, as well as 2 targets. So I think that they try to feed him again. He's only $5,200. Rex Burkhead at $3,500 had 13 attempts last week and 5 targets. That's pretty nice for $3,500. And he might actually sneak into a couple goal line work roles, because we know that they've used him in that role before, much more often than they used James White. And they haven't used Sony Michel that often in that role either. They've been giving it to guys like James Devlin. So Rex Burkhead at $3,500 might be interesting. He did touch the ball 17 times last week. That's pretty good volume for $3,500, especially with New England being 13-point home favorites. The Jets side, Darnold has been really, really good. 35 attempts last week, 38 attempts against Houston, 24 completions in each for 3 touchdowns and 2 touchdowns respectively, leading him to 2 20-plus point performances. He has upside. He's only 5,200. We think that they're going to be down and throwing from behind and trying to put New England in the playoffs without a bye week. I think he's an okay play. You can team him up with Robbie Anderson at 5,600, who has been lights out over the last 2 weeks with 13 targets and 11 targets, as well as touchdowns in 3 straight weeks. He's not a bad play at all. Elijah McGuire at 5,300. He had 14 attempts and 5 targets for not very many yards. I think it's less than 100 yards, but he did have 2 touchdowns. So there's options on the Jets. I think that they're getting a little bit pricey. I think that Elijah McGuire at 5,300, I'd probably rather have Sony Michel at 5,200. But there's options in this game. I don't think that I trust the passing game for New England, but I do like the running game, and I like the passing game for the Jets.
Yeah, no, the Jets that was my stack last week. It worked very, very well. The price bump this week is definitely not as exciting. I do still think Darnold and Anderson and Herndon is a great 1, 2, 3. Herndon's only 3,400. You got Darnold at 52, and you mentioned Anderson at 56. It is quite the price bumps, but definitely in play. And if you just want to one-off with Anderson, I don't hate it because he's getting force-fed the ball, and he's just been a monster. So all really, really intriguing plays. But on the Patriots side, it's Edelman at 76 if you want to be in the passing game. But otherwise, Sony Michel ran for over 116 yards last week, absolute monster. And then earlier this year, he had 21 carries for 133 against the Jets. And the Jets ran for a season-high 215 yards in that game earlier this year against the Jets. The Patriots, this is what they do in big double-digit games when they're favored at home, especially. They run the darn football. That's what they do in their whole career. And last year, there's a stat in Week 17, the Patriots ran it 38 times for 147 yards and a touchdown. They run the football, they get their win, and they get out of town without trying to hurt anybody because they're already in the playoffs, but they definitely want home field. So they're going to get the W's, what they're going for, but they're going to do it the least injury risk way possible, if that makes sense. So Sony Michel, I love at 52. Your Burkhead called very, very intriguing at 3,500 with 17 touches last week. That's big for $3,500. You sneak 1 or 2 of those in the end zone, that's just insane value. So that's a very interesting value play as well. But I don't mind the passing game with the Jets, just like you said. Definitely options there. But when it comes to New England, I really, really like Sony Michel. I think he's going to get 20-plus carries pretty easily this week. Sneak some into the end zone would be nice. But Burkhead could be interesting. And then Edelman if you want a piece of the passing game. All right, let's go to the afternoon. Raiders at the Chiefs. Chiefs 13.5-point home favorites. The total is 52.5 in this one. If the Chiefs win, they clinch the AFC East or AFC West, sorry, and they get home field advantage for the playoffs. Big game for the Chiefs. The Raiders, yeah, James, you like to cover them once in a while. What do you think on this one?
I don't like to cover them. I think that the Raiders are trash, and I think that the Chiefs are good, and I think that the Chiefs do have things to play for here. My thing with this game is really, can the Raiders keep up with the Chiefs to the point where it's going to like keep Kansas City on the field the entire time? And yes, Oakland was able to keep up with them a couple weeks ago. But the thing about when teams face each other twice, there's significantly less scoring and there's better defense played on either side between those two teams. So I don't expect this to be another 40-33 game. I don't expect Oakland to put up the same amount of points. I mean, they couldn't do anything against Cincinnati. Why would I think that they're going to be able to do anything against Kansas City, especially on the road in Kansas City? I just don't think the Raiders are going to be able to keep up here. But the main options for Kansas City are still in play, especially somebody like Tyreek Hill, who doesn't really make his living on volume. You know, he's going to make his living on those like long 35-yard touchdown passes down the sideline that result in touchdowns. And I think that's really what we're looking for here, is for him to have a big game and just put them out in front on big plays. I think you can still go with somebody like Travis Kelce, 7,200. It's a high price, high price. I would always rather pay down at tight end, but he's a volume guy in this offense. So at 7,200, you're getting probably one of the biggest cogs of an offense that needs to win this game for home field advantage to the playoffs, which is really big for Patrick Mahomes, being a rookie QB. Having that home field, we know that quarterbacks perform better at home. Although Josh Hershmeyer just put out an article that shows there's not really much of a justification for home field advantage, other than like the refs making calls for the home team. But we can talk about that another time. Home field advantage still matters, so Patrick Mahomes wants this. At running back, Doug Martin has mostly been the guy, unless they're coming from behind, and then it's Jalen Richard. So if you think that Kansas City is going to be in the lead, which you should think that Kansas City is going to be in the lead, it's a Jalen Richard spot. But at 4,200, he does not have the upside that I care about that's going to win tournaments. He's just not going to. I mean, he hasn't put up over 20 fantasy points all season, even when given ample opportunity. He's only broken 15 fantasy points twice the entire year. Once against the Rams and once last week against Denver, and that was 15.1 fantasy points. So he might be a popular option this week, but I don't like it. I don't like that he doesn't have upside. I'd rather find the volume somewhere and find the consistent role and find those touchdowns. I just don't like that spot. At running back on Kansas City's side, Damian Williams still had 13 carries last week against Seattle. Spencer Ware had 15 carries. They're going to pretty much split things right down the middle. I think that the best play in this game is going to be Tyreek Hill in GPPs. I just want that huge boom or bust upside. I don't want it to be a volume-dependent thing because I don't think that Oakland can keep up. So I want those big plays that are going to put Kansas City out in front. People are probably going to go to Patrick Mahomes, 7,100, playing at home for the home field advantage for the playoffs, but I would rather just pay down at quarterback. I don't really want to pay 7,100, even if he has all that upside. He's a good cash game play. It's just not going to be somebody that I would really want in tournaments.
Yeah, I'd say pay up in cash and just get him. I really haven't paid much for him this year. He's been great. Probably has hurt me once in a while, but he is a great play still. 7,100 just tough, and you can get somebody a little cheaper with big upside as well. I do love Travis Kelce saying all that. I would pay up there if you want to. He's 53 yards short of the all-time receiving record for a tight end in a season. Kelce will get that this week. I'm pretty sure he'll probably be close to 100-plus yards this week. He's caught at least 5 passes in 14 straight games. He's when he faced Oakland in Week 13, 12 catches for 168 and 2 touchdowns. So I think Travis Kelce is a phenomenal play this week. Like when you're putting it in there and you're thinking, I don't want to pay for a tight end, think you're paying for a wide receiver 1 and take a value at tight end. That's what you're doing. This guy is elite. I like him a lot this week. I think Kelce is a great play in this matchup, because if Kansas City puts up their points and gets their 33-plus implied team total, Travis Kelce will have a major factor in that. So I think Kelce's really, really good. I don't mind Tyreek Hill. He's been a wide receiver 3 or lower in 3 straight weeks, so makes you kind of think a little bit. I pretty much want Kelce, and if you want to put him with Mahomes, go for it. Otherwise, I don't want the running backs, like you said, and everything else kind of up in the air. Oakland side, though, I do like Jordy Nelson quite a bit. Double-digit targets or double-digit points in 4 straight weeks, 14.5 or more points in 3 of those 4. He's only $4,900. He's getting a lot of targets. He's been the primary receiver. He's averaging 7.3 catches per game on 9 targets per game in the last 4 weeks, with at least 6 catches in all 4 of those games. He's really popping off. He had 10 catches for 97 yards when these guys met in Week 13. So I think Jordy Nelson at $4,900 could be sneaky nice in this game, because if Oakland tries to keep up, or even – I'm not saying they actually do keep up, but they're going to want to try to keep up. They're going to be throwing the rock, and that means Jordy Nelson's going to get his targets yet again. I think he could be in for a really big week at $4,900. I don't want to say he's going to be this week's Robbie Anderson, but volume-wise, if he sneaks into the end zone once or twice, he could put up a huge week in this game. So I think Jordy at 49 could be very, very nice. Other than that, there's a lot to like. It's just hard to really get there. I love Travis Kelce this week, though, and that's where you can go Kelce at the tight end, Nelson at the wide receiver. Basically flip-flop the position. All right, Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens 6-point home favorites. The total is 41 in this one. I should have printed out a sheet that had bigger writing than this, but when you look at this one, if the Ravens win or the Steelers lose, they clinch the AFC North. If they lose and the Steelers win, the Ravens miss the playoffs, a.k.a. the Ravens need to win this game to make the playoffs, period. They don't get in if they lose. So it's a big game. The Browns are coming in red hot. James, what do you like in this one?
Bro, Baker Mayfield is kind of a dick. He's a spiteful person. He's vengeful, and he's coming into this game knowing that Baltimore has to win to get into the playoffs. He's going to give everything he's got to make sure that they don't make it into the playoffs. Like, this is his Super Bowl. This is the Browns' reason to play. They're trying to knock Baltimore out of the playoffs by taking them out here. The problem is, I don't know if they can do it. The Browns have been really good over the last couple of weeks. Like you said, Baker Mayfield, or the Browns in general, have been red hot. Baker Mayfield has been fantastic. 73% completion percentage last week with 3 touchdowns. Respectable average yards per completion at 7.7. He had 10.8 against Carolina, 9.2 against Houston. He's been really, really good. But the Ravens run such an odd offense at this point. They are limiting people to 10.9 less plays per game, which is incredible. People are only running 43 plays per game against the Ravens right now. And the Ravens defense is so good that it's almost impossible to score a lot of points against a very good defense in only 42 plays, which credit to Evan Silva for all of that stuff. And I don't think that this is a team and a defense and an offense that can really win in the playoffs. I don't think that they are, but I do think that they're a team that's good enough to beat a Cleveland team that's kind of running off pure emotion and is going to make some mistakes against a very good defense playing at Baltimore. So as much as I think that the Browns really want this win, and as much as I think the Ravens really want this win, the edge has got to go to Baltimore. And if they're going to do it, it has to involve Lamar Jackson. It has to involve Lamar Jackson actually being good and concise, being a game manager, absolutely, but running the ball plenty and having 15-plus attempts, keeping the ball past the chains, running on third down. It's going to be an ugly game. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of fantasy goodness here besides Lamar Jackson. On the Cleveland side, I do think that Njoku is interesting. He was really good last week. He's only 3,700. He had 4 targets, 3 receptions for 73 yards and a touchdown. It's his second best game over the last 5 weeks, both against Cincinnati, which is hilarious. But I just don't see a lot of fantasy goodness in this game, but I do think that it'll be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be one of those old school, late, cold AFC North games. It's going to be a lot of, 3 yards in a cloud of dust type stuff out there. You mentioned the Ravens offense and what Silva reported about, the fewer plays. They're literally running like the wing T type stuff. They're bringing like extra tight ends, extra fullbacks. They're doing it all, and it's getting really goofy out there, but it's working. So that's what works for them. What I'm looking at here is if you want to go from the Brown side, I don't hate Nick Chubb because he's going to get over 20 touches a game. He's averaging 20.6 touches per game, and the Ravens are giving up over 103 yards from scrimmage to running backs. He's $6,400 though. He's got to find the end zone or you're in trouble. The real plays I want though is Gus Edwards at 40. I believe it's $4,400 if you're going to stack it with the defense. I think Edwards is going to get a lot of touches in this game. Could really pay off. You can run on the Browns pretty well, so $4,400 there. Or the only other play I like is that Ravens defense at $2,800. I think you're getting a discount. We've talked time and time again how good they are at home. They've just been good, period, this year. Really, really good. And I think it's a great spot for them in a slow-paced game. The Browns team total is only 17.5. I could see the Ravens at $2,800 being you're getting a really good defense at a value this week, and I like that quite a bit. So that if I only play one play from this game, it'd be the Ravens defense, and I get my offense elsewhere. But if you want to stack it up with the running back, knock yourself out. All right, Eagles at the Redskins. Redskins 7-point home dogs in this one. The total is 42. When it comes to the playoff implications here, if the Eagles win and the Vikings lose, the Eagles make the playoffs. So the Eagles have to win no matter what, and the Vikings have to lose for the Eagles to get in. Big D Nick has been popping off. Another big week last week. Does he have one more in him, James? What do you like in this one?
Yeah, he probably has one more in him. Washington is trash, and Nick Foles can throw the ball a lot and be really good at doing it. But he got a massive price hike. I mean, massive. He was only $4,700 last week. He's $5,900 this week. And I don't know that I want to trust a backup quarterback coming in for $5,900. At the same time, they have to win this game. And Nick Foles has shown that he's good under pressure. He's shown that he is kind of good in the clutch, and I guess I don't really have much reason to doubt him here. In the two games that Nick Foles has started, Alshon Jeffrey has 82 yards against Houston and 160 yards against the Rams. He's averaging over 20 yards per reception with two 50-yard completions one in each game, so 2 over the last 2 weeks. He hasn't found the end zone yet. So his floor with Nick Foles, it looks like, is about 10 fantasy points at $5,700. If they have to win this game, Alshon Jeffrey is probably going to be part of it. But the other problem with this Philadelphia offense and having them need to win this game, Nick Foles is going to be a part of it. Alshon Jeffrey will probably be a part of it. But then where else do you look? I mean, Darren Sproles last week had a good game. Golden Tate only had 3 targets, 2 receptions. Nelson Aguilar had 7 targets on 116 yards and a touchdown. But that's his largest fantasy output by a mile since week 2 against Tampa Bay when Alshon Jeffrey was out. So I don't think that I'm ready to trust Nelson Aguilar. I'm not going to trust Jordan Matthews. I'm not going to trust anybody on this team outside of basically Alshon Jeffrey. Maybe you have some other thoughts on that, but I just don't think that there's anything that I can really like from a fantasy output here.
Yeah, there's one other guy. His name's Zach Ertz. At 67.
Zach Ertz.
Yeah, he's very, very good.
It's like, who am I missing? I knew that I was missing somebody. Yeah. 16 targets last week against Houston, 12 receptions, 110 yards. He's obviously going to be a huge part of it. I knew I was missing somebody. I thought that we talked about all the expensive tight ends. But yeah, Zach Ertz, $6,700. He's probably the play that I like more than Travis Kelce this week.
Yep.
For $500 less in a must-win situation, it just makes more sense. And I think that you can go with Foles and Ertz, or Foles and Alshon Jeffrey if you want to go there. There are ways to do it. But again, like I just said, I don't know that I want to trust Nick Foles at $5,900 to really put up a huge fantasy game here. The price hike kind of scares me off. There's other quarterbacks that I might like a little bit more with different versatility. I like Deshaun Watson more at $6,600. I like Patrick Mahomes more at $7,200. I just don't know if I really love Nick Foles in this spot. As much as Philadelphia has to win, it's just one of those small sample things. Call me conservative, whatever. It just worries me. But Zach Ertz, fantastic play, $6,700. I think he's the best tight end on the slate, and it's not close. If you want to take Travis Kelce, I understand that. But Zach Ertz is the man for this team outside of Alshon Jeffrey. On the other side, for Washington, don't play anybody on this team.
Yeah, very simple. Quickly, Washington, nothing. When it comes to Philadelphia, though, yes, Zach Ertz, he had 9 for 83 against these guys earlier in the season. In his career, he's averaging almost 8 catches and 81 yards a game against these guys. He loves beating up on the Redskins. He loves beating up on everybody. Last week, he set the most receptions by a tight end record in football. So he loves it. He's a phenomenal play. I agree. I do like him over Travis Kelce. I want one of those two. Like I think I'm paying up for one of those two this week. So I think they're both just an absolute smash spots. Like if you want to make your lineup really, really different, you use one of those at utility and one of those at your tight end position. I mean, your flex and your tight end. No one will have that lineup. And I know it's tough to tie that up, but again, think of them as wide receivers, not as tight ends, because they are getting wide receiver workloads. That's the best way I can say it. They're going to be really, really smash plays. And then I agree on Alshon Jeffrey. I was all over him last week. You know, he had an okay game, like nothing great. He had around 10 DraftKings points or whatever it was. Yeah, 11.2. He had 3 catches for 82 yards. He dropped a 50-yard touchdown. Nick Foles put it right in his arms. You put 12 more points on, he's got 23-point DraftKings week, and you're soaring. You're happy as hell. So I don't mind a Foles, Jeffrey, Ertz stack if you want to go there. Yes, Foles' price has gone up a bit. He's completed 59 of 80 passes in his last 2 weeks, over 9.3 yards per pass attempt. There's a lot, completing almost 74% of your passes is going to have some stuff coming back for sure. But it is a Redskins team, and Foles does like to dink and dunk a lot. And then he goes up top to Jeffrey. He's got his release valve and Ertz over the middle. He's been using Darren Sproles a lot. I don't completely hate it. The price jump sucks. But if you want to stack Foles, Ertz, and Jeffrey, I think that's a really, really solid stack. And then other than that, everything else is kind of cute. Like Sproles, he helped the guy win $1 million last week because he went off, found the end zone twice. If Sproles doesn't find the end zone, it's going to be really hard, especially this price bump now, to be relevant to you. So keep it in the receiving game. Keep it with Foles. Keep it with Ertz. Keep it with Jeffrey. That's where I'd like to see things go. Bears at the Vikings. Vikings 4-point home favorites. The total in this game is 40.5. The Bears have nothing to play for, I believe. Or if they win and the Rams lose, the Bears are the number 2 seed. So maybe the Rams will lose. Rams are in a really good spot this week. But if the Bears win, the Rams lose, they're the number 2 seed. When it comes to the Bears, though, Nagy has already said if they look up on the scoreboard and the Rams have a comfortable lead, he's pulling guys. Just keep that in mind. The Vikings now, if the Vikings lose and the Eagles win, the Vikings miss the playoffs. So the Vikings, if they win, they're in. I think if they lose and the Eagles lose, they're in. Basically, winning, you're in. The Bears are probably going to rest some guys. This is going to be sloppy, James. What's your thoughts here?
This game sucks, dude. Like, it's so hard because you can't possibly have any kind of lean into what's going to happen. If you think that the Rams are going to win this game handedly, then Chicago is going to pull their players, and then Minnesota wins, and then Philadelphia has to try hard if they are watching the score, right, of the Minnesota game. If the Rams are losing, then Chicago is going to try their asses off, and then Minnesota has to try, so this game can actually have some decent fantasy points. And then the Eagles are going to have to try, so it has implications there. So these situations where it's 3 teams tied together, I think that it mostly hinges on the Rams, right? If the Rams show up and beat the hell out of San Francisco, which they should, I mean, all things considered, the Rams should have a sizable lead at halftime. Then Chicago's going to pull their starters at halftime, and then Minnesota is going to win, and then Philadelphia has to win. But No, because then Philadelphia is out if Minnesota wins, right?
Yeah. Yep.
God, This sucks. Okay,
yeah.
So
it's a giant jigsaw puzzle. Fuck us.
It sucks, man. So I think that the only way that you have interest in this game is if you think that the Rams are going to beat the 49ers. Or no, if you think the Rams are going to lose to the 49ers, right? Because then Chicago has to play their hearts out the entire game and hope that the Rams lose to the 49ers. So
well, as long as the Niners at least just keep it close. That's all you need. Just keep it close.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
That's how tough it is, though, because the Niners have been playing slop. They kept it close with the Bears last week. It's like,
yeah. So I don't think they keep it close. I don't really want a part of a game where there's 6 different scenarios, with most of them turning out to me not getting my starters to play the entire game. Minnesota has some good pieces that would make sense in this position. think Dalvin Cook is fine at 6,300. Had 16 carries last week, 3 targets, 3 receptions, over 100 total yards. Wasn't able to find the end zone, though, and that's kind of important for somebody like him who's not going to touch the ball 25 times. He's going to touch the ball like 18 to 22 times. So Dalvin Cook is probably my favorite play in this game, but it's really, really rough. I don't have any interest in the Chicago side because there are so many scenarios where they aren't going to try. So it's gross, man. Dalvin Cook for me, and that's pretty much the only fringe play.
Yeah, I agree. Dalvin Cook definitely has some appeal at $6,300, but we've mentioned other running backs I feel a lot better about. Pretty much, if you play Dalvin Cook and he hits, you're probably going to be really high up in a GPP. That's just he's going to be super low owned because of all the scenarios that James just talked about. And it's a very, very risky play. So if you're multi-entering, yes. If you're single entering or cash games, I'd probably say no. But the only other guy I'd look at in this matchup would be a guy like Tariq Cohen. Because if Chicago does have to move the ball, you move it with your running backs in the passing game, not the running game. And Tariq's been kind of quiet lately, so I don't mind him at $5,900. But still, I'd rather have Sonny Michel at 52. So, like you said, it's a game that it could be fun to watch, especially if Chicago has to play for something. But all in all, it's a really risky one because if Chicago pulls their guys, it's going to just suck all around. I guess that means if they do pull their guys, then Minnesota scores a bunch of points real quick. But you're playing the guessing game, the what-if game, and I really don't like playing that game. I'll take my chances in GPPs, but I'll take my chances with guys I know that at least are going to be on the field. So that's where I'll be. Bengals at Steelers. Steelers are 14.5-point home favorites in this one. Total's 45.5. The Steelers, if they win and the Ravens lose, they clinch the AFC North. If they win and the Colts or Texans tie, they win the wild card. So they have to win, period. The Steelers have to win. 14.5-point home favorites. And they need some help. Need a lot of help, actually. So I don't like the Steelers' chances, to tell you the truth, but we shall see. What do you like in this one, James?
I like the Steelers a lot because Mike Tomlin is an emotional coach. And if he knows that he needs to put up points, he's going to use his multiple Hall of Fame talents to the greatest of their abilities to get him a lot of points and to secure a win. So this kind of seems like a spot where you're taking Ben Roethlisberger, you're taking Antonio Brown, you're taking Juju Smith-Schuster, and you're just going. This was actually the spot that I'm pretty sure that it was the Killer Bees 2 years ago, or it might have even been last year, that won somebody the Millie Maker in Week 17 because they needed to win. And Tomlin was just like, I'm going to put up 50 points then so that there's no question whether we win or not. So this kind of seems like a spot to me that would make sense for him to do that again. Antonio Brown missed Thursday's practice with a knee issue. If he misses all of the Juju Smith-Schuster, just literally all of it, and then plenty of James Washington as well at 3,100, I just think this is a nice stack spot for the Steelers. At the same time, we're going to have James Conner coming back. He practiced fully on Wednesday. He might be in line for a huge workload as well. If Antonio Brown misses, I think that Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner, and Ben Roethlisberger is a fantastic stack. James Conner only 7,500. We know that that's too cheap for him when he's healthy, especially against the worst defense in the league in the Bengals. On the other side, the Bengals suck a lot. They don't have anybody going at this point besides like Joe Mixon at 6,700. He had 19 touches last week in a game that they just kind of got the doors blown off of them. There wasn't much for him to do, but he has huge upside at 6,700. And then at wide receiver, I guess we're going to have Tyler Boyd is questionable. He was non-participant. I don't think they play him. There's no reason to. So that would mean that John Ross would be the guy at 4K. He only had 5 targets, only caught 1 against the Browns for 5 yards. That's some funness. Or no, was that rushing? No. He had 1 rushing attempt.
It was a catch. It was a bullshit touchdown, like with less than like 2 minutes to go because of a turnover or something. It was garbage. It never should have happened.
Hilarious. Okay, yeah. So Cincinnati sucks. I don't really have any interest in them outside of Joe Mixon, but I love the Pittsburgh Steelers side. I legitimately think this game could end like 42-7.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think the Steelers really put it deep, just whip it all over Cincinnati. I think Ben's a great play. I love Juju. Even if Antonio plays, I think Juju's a great play. He's people love and hate I appreciate players that go on social media and have some fun with things. But then when people give them shit about it, I think they're the worst human beings on the planet. And I love how Juju embraces the whole like Twitter world and whatever aspects of it. I think it's a lot of fun. And he seems very emotional is where I was going with this. I think he's want to take it personally. He's going to want to go put some big plays out there this week to the best of his ability. So I think Juju's a phenomenal play this week if you believe in narratives at all. I think the Cincinnati defense is a joke, so I'll play with my narratives because I think regardless they're going to smoke them. So Juju's a really good play. Antonio, if they get up big, they might rest him a little bit. And so both really good plays. I don't really know if I want to trust James Conner yet because I feel the same way about Antonio as I feel about Connors. They want to get him game action and get him ready, and he still could explode. But at the same time, I think they might limit him a bit, like maybe make it 60-40 him and Samuels just to get him ready. And that scares me. Maybe we'll keep listening and hearing reports out of camp, practice this weekend. It'll help a lot with that. But I love the passing game in Pittsburgh. I think it's one of the best spots on the slate. I like it a lot. And then if you do need to go on Cincinnati's side, if you're trying to game stack or whatever, you could look at C.J. Uzomah. He got in the end zone last week. In the last 2 weeks, or last week, he had over 26% of the team's targets since Tyler Boyd was out. He has a team-high 29 targets in the last 2 weeks since Driscoll took over. And when he placed these guys earlier this year, he had 6 catches for 54 yards. So a decent game. He's $3,400. If you are looking for a cheap tight end, you can go there. You know my thoughts already by now. I want to pay up a tight end. But if you need to go cheap, Uzomah at 34, not the worst play in the world. I'd probably rather have Herndon or something there, but Uzomah's still there in an offense that doesn't have much to look at, and he's getting all that target share. Tough to find at the tight end position. The Arizona Cardinals at the Seattle Seahawks, another massive spread. Seahawks 13.5-point home favorites. The total is only 38.5. James, the Arizona Cardinals 12.5-point team total. We got this. We got the Seahawks. I've never heard a 12.5-point team total, but the Seahawks, if they win, they will be the number 5 seed. If they lose and the Vikings win, they'll be the 6th seed. Either way, they're going on the road. But, you know, the magical chance you're the 5 seed and you'd rather be that. Depends on who they're facing, I guess. So a win and they're the 5, a lose they're the 6. They're already in regardless. And they're massive favorites, James. What do you like in this one?
Dude, just Chris Carson.
Yeah, absolutely. This price is too stupidly cheap. I have no idea how this price did not move at all.
I mean, I get it. Like, I understand why his price hasn't moved, and it's because the DraftKings algorithm is generally based on not only performance but also ownership. And he's not somebody that people just like flock to every week. He's not ever 50% owned. So his price hasn't moved because he's not very highly owned. But as a 13-point home favorite against a team that only has a total of 12, he should be 100% owned at 6,500. He's gonna touch the ball upwards of like 25 to 30 times. He's only 6,500. He's put up 29 and 26 fantasy points in the last 2 weeks, as well as double-digit fantasy points for the last 6 weeks straight, with only one single-digit performance in the last 8. So 6,500. Chris Carson is fantastic play. People, I think, are going to be on Russell Wilson at 6,100. He had 3 touchdowns last week, 8 attempts for 57 yards on the ground. He looks like he does every December, where he plays out of his frickin' mind going into the playoffs with just ridiculous efficiency. So I think that I'm okay with Russell Wilson at 6,100. He's a better play for me than Nick Foles is as far as like that price range. So Russell Wilson 6,100, totally fine. Doug Baldwin is questionable. Of course, the 2 weeks that I have not been able to play, he has been the guy after I shilled him for like 5 weeks of single-digit performances straight. So 12 targets last week, 7 receptions, and 126 yards and a touchdown. Against San Francisco, 2 touchdowns on 77 yards. Him and Russell Wilson make a fantastic stack here. I do think that you could do something along the lines of Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin, and Chris Carson, but I don't think that Seattle has to score that many points because there's no way that Arizona does anything in this game. And therefore, moving on to the Arizona side, don't play anybody from Arizona.
Bingo. I absolutely love Chris Carson, $6,500. Before I even looked at pricing, I saw who they were playing. I'm like, give me all the Chris Carsons because they've said it all season as he was their guy, but they've always been so beat up in the backfield. It's really never showcased until the last few weeks, and he's gotten you almost 30 DraftKings points in back-to-back weeks. I don't see that changing this week. You can run down Arizona's throat. This is something you can do. C.J. Anderson last week dominated them. It's just not a thing. When they played earlier this year, Seattle, 34 carries for 171 yards and 2 scores. against Arizona. This is a huge game for Chris Carson. I like it a lot. And if you want to pair him up with Russell Wilson, I don't hate it because I love Doug Baldwin. I don't want to fully stack this game because I'm kind of worried about things, but I like the idea of a Wilson-Carson stack. Get the touchdowns, throw him through Wilson if you have to. I do like Baldwin. I'm not hating on your call there. I've played him season-long, DFS. I love Baldwin, but I think the idea of Wilson and Carson together is really, really appealing. $6,100 for Wilson, Carson at $65, and then build around elsewhere can be a lot of fun. I think there's a lot to like there. Other than that, though, I don't want a lot else here. I'll get different elsewhere, and I'll stay away from Arizona completely. Niners at the Rams. Rams are 10-point home favorites in this one. The total is a whopping 48.5. Not too bad. The Niners almost a 20-point team total. That's good. The Rams, if they win or the Bears lose, they clinch a first-round bye. So all the Rams have to do is win. Very simple. Talked about it already in that long scenario in the Bears game. What do you like in this one, James?
Yeah, so the Rams, I mean, Sean McVay isn't somebody who takes his foot off the gas pedal. Todd Gurley is a bit questionable here. He is questionable. He won't practice Thursday and doesn't need to participate Friday in order to be active. So I think he's going to play. I don't see any reason for him not to play, but I also don't see any reason for him to have a huge workload. So at 8,600, he is probably the least upside play out of him, Saquon Barkley, and Ezekiel Elliott, even if he is going to be active, because we just saw what C.J. Anderson did. There's no reason why Gurley needs to play this entire game going into the playoffs, especially on a bad knee. I think they really limit his workload here, like way less than 15 touches. I would guess that he only plays half of the team snaps at most and only touches the ball 10 to 12 times. So 8,600, steer away from Todd Gurley. But the wide receiver should play the whole game. Brandon Cooks at only 6,500 is a pretty nice play against San Francisco. Richard Sherman has been really, really good this year. So I worry about him against Robert Woods. But we do know that Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods both play on the outside. So we don't know that Richard Sherman is going to be able to shadow one or the other. It's more about how Sean McVay wants to attack this, because Sean McVay is smart enough to avoid Richard Sherman. We know that he is. He's going to get whoever he wants to get the ball into the slot or away from Sherman on the other side of the field or whatever, use motions and stuff like that. So Robert Woods is probably an okay play. Brandon Cooks is probably an okay play. The way that I would look at this is if you're going to do like a 3-max tourney, have one lineup with Robert Woods, one lineup with Brandon Cooks, so that you can kind of try to hedge that, because we don't know who Richard Sherman's going to try to cover. At tight end, George Kittle, 6,300, fantastic play. Doesn't he have a chance at a record in this game?
Best tight end, not that I'm seeing here on these notes. No,
I thought that he had a chance at a record, but regardless,
maybe it's a Niners record.
Might be a Niners record, but he's a fantastic play at 6,300. We prefer Ertz. I think both of us prefer Ertz 6,700, but yeah, 6,300 is fine. It's just really, it's hard for me to think that the Rams are going to play their starters the entire time, especially if they're up on San Francisco at half. So I worry about that, but I do think Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods are good plays. Regardless, one of them should score a touchdown here. It's just hard to guess who. And then on the 49ers side, you mentioned they have a pretty decent total. The question is, who is it really going to be? I think that Jeff Wilson should be in line for another decent workload. 4,400, there's not going to be any Matt Breida, so I like him a lot playing against the Rams. There's not really anybody that's going to back him up. They have Alfred Morris, but we all know that Alfred Morris is pretty much just there to take up space. And then at wide receiver, Marquise Goodwin is questionable. Bourne had 5 targets last week. Pettis had 5 targets, but he's out, so it's really iffy. It's probably going to be some combination of Bourne and Kittle trying to hold up this offense. I guess Richie James Jr. had like one decent game back against Oakland, but I wouldn't count on him to do it again. So it's really, really thin for San Francisco. I think that I'd rather just go with Jeff Wilson and George Kittle and just call it a day if I'm going to use anybody on this team. But It's another one of those iffy games. I think the Rams win this one handedly, and Brandon Cook's probably the best play in my opinion, but it's iffy.
Yeah, if you want to stack it up, Goff can be in play at 62. I don't hate it, but Woods I like a lot at $6,900. At least 60 yards receiving in every game since week 1. Richard Sherman will be on one of the outside spots, and Woods runs 2/3 of his routes in the slot. So, like 66% of the time, he won't have to worry about Sherman. So I think there's a lot to like there with Woods in that matchup. When you look at the backfield, C.J. Anderson is still not a horrible play at his price tag at $5,400. You can definitely get a look there, but I do love Wilson at $4,400 for the Niners. I think it's a phenomenal play, 20-plus touches most likely. We've seen it when he gets the workload. He's very, very productive. So I like that with no Breida in his way. And then George Kittle at $6,300 is really good. If for some reason you don't go to Ertz or Kelsey, like you said, we prefer Ertz, but I don't mind Kittle at all. He had 8 for 98 and a score against the Rams earlier this year. You can ball out when it comes to facing the Rams, and he's been getting a ton of targets in this offense. So I don't hate Kittle at all at $6,300. That's pretty much the simple way I'll put it. There's a lot of pieces here. Like you said, if it's a blowout, it could get weird. If Marquise Goodwin starts, he's only $3,900. I don't hate it. Like if you want to game stack this game, it could be interesting because it is one of the higher totals on the slate. And the Niners, they got nothing to worry about. They're going to keep slinging it around even if they're down 30. So Goodwin and Wilson can get a lot of action there, even Kittle. So if you game stack it, it could be interesting. I'm not saying go and do that, but there is upside with some of the Niners players, unlike some of these other blowout games we've talked about already. I don't hate it at all. All right, Chargers at the Broncos. Chargers 6.5-point road favorites. The total is 41.5 in this one. If the Chargers win and the Chiefs lose, they clinch the AFC West and home field advantage. They're already in the playoffs. If the Chiefs lose, the Chargers could win the AFC West and home field advantage. What do you like here, James?
Yeah, the big news here is Philip Lindsay is out. It's going to lead to a lot of people playing Devontae Booker, which I think is probably fine. But the last time that Philip Lindsay was out against Kansas City, or no, he wasn't even out. But the biggest output that he's had was a 14-point game against Kansas City, where he had 9 carries for 78 yards, 4 targets and 4 receptions for 23 yards. I think he's going to be heavy chalk here playing at home against the Chargers. Or no. Royce Freeman is going to be the chalk, not Devontae Booker. That's why I was looking at that weird. Yeah. But the reason why I was talking about Devontae Booker is because I think he's just as good of a play. I mean, they're both $3,500 for Royce Freeman and $3,200 for Devontae Booker. We know that both of them have pretty much secured the same role. They're both equally as good of plays. So I think this is kind of a nice leverage spot. You can go with Devontae Booker for slightly less volume upside. I think that Royce Freeman probably touches the ball 3 to 5 times more than Devontae Booker, but both of them have the same upside because both of them are going to have a little bit of work in the receiving game. Both of them are going to have somewhere between like 8 and 12 carries, I would assume, on the ground. But I don't know. I just don't think that Royce Freeman is great chalk, and I wanted to mention that Devontae Booker is plenty good of a pivot off of him. Melvin Gordon is back. He had 12 carries, 41 yards, and 3 targets, 3 receptions last week against Baltimore. He should have a better outcome here. He shredded the Broncos last time. Or no, he didn't. That was Gurley that shredded them through. But Melvin Gordon's probably fine here. The problem is that if the Chargers want to keep him like healthy, Eckler is plenty healthy as well, and so is Jackson. So paying $8,400 for Melvin Gordon, it just doesn't sit right with me. This is just a hard game for me to look at as far as like where the chalks can be, because I like some of these plays, but I don't like the volume associated with them, because I know that week 17 we're going to run into a lot of running back by committee, and the teams that are already in the playoffs, why would they risk hurting their starters? So Melvin Gordon doesn't look that great to me because of that reason. Keenan Allen, $7,900. He should be good in this game. He did well against Denver last time, 12 targets, 89 yards, and a touchdown. So I think $7,900, he's a fine play, especially in a game that they really want to win. Denver wasn't able to cover him last time. He got the best of Chris Harris Jr. in that matchup and just destroyed Bradley Roby. So he's in another good position here at $7,900. As far as the Broncos side, I like Deshaun Hamilton. I've liked Deshaun Hamilton since he took over for Emmanuel Sanders a couple weeks ago. He had 9 targets, 6 receptions last game, and a touchdown. He's had double-digit fantasy points in 3 straight games, coming away from Cincinnati where he didn't have anything. So his upside is really, really nice in this game. Even if I don't like the Broncos' offense as a whole, Cortland Sutton had 10 targets last week, 6 receptions, and a touchdown. He's in play as well. The issue is that I don't trust Keenum to have the volume. Like, if Denver wants to win this game, they have to slow it down like they did against the Chargers a couple weeks ago, where they kept the Chargers offense like out of the end zone, but that was a fluke. So I don't know. How do you feel about this game? I only like Deshaun Hamilton and Keenan Allen. I don't really like anything else.
Basically, I agree with the Deshaun Hamilton side. He's had 9 or more targets in 3 straight games. I think he's definitely going to get his looks regardless. So I do like Deshaun quite a bit at 5,000. When it comes to the Chargers side of the football, I think you stay in the air. You look at Rivers at 64. I do like Allen at 79, but at the same time, if they get up or they see the Chiefs doing their things, he's been banged up too. That's my only concern there. I really don't like the running back situation because there's so many pieces there that can give Gordon a rest. But Allen at 79, I think could really go nuts here if they let him go. Otherwise, this could be a Mike Williams spot at $4,900 again. And that's kind of where you have to balance it. If you want to take a chance with Mike Williams, he's going to play all game. Rivers can feed him. I think if you want to go Rivers, Allen, and Williams, you can make it really, really interesting stack in this game. But I don't know. Like, there's a lot to like here when it comes to the Chargers, but at the same time, there's some home teams and some better spots that I think I'm going to focus on more, and that's kind of where I'll be going with it.
Yeah. Like, if it's a question between Keenan Allen and Juju Smith-Schuster, I absolutely want Juju over Keenan Allen.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think I wouldn't be shocked by any means if Allen goes off. Like you said, he already did it this year. We know how good he is. He is an elite wide receiver. But it's just, I don't know. There's still that question mark there that we don't have other places. But all right, Colts at Titans, Sunday night football. Winner gets into the playoffs. Will be a 6 seed in the playoff, potentially a winner in the South if the Texans lose. But they'll be the 6 seed. So winner in, loser goes home game. The Colts are 3.5-point road favorites in this one. The total is 43.5. This will be a showdown slate. James, any quick thoughts on this one?
I would like this game more if I knew who was going to play quarterback for Tennessee. Mariota is still experiencing numbness. That dude needs to have surgery bad.
Yeah.
So
it's happened so many times this year. It's tilting.
Yeah, they really need to get him off the field and just like take care of their cornerstone quarterback, because he's going to develop long-term nerve damage in that hand if he doesn't take care of it. And this offense just refuses to do so. I think that I'm probably fine with Derrick Henry here at 10-8. Like, I don't like the play that much because he's entirely dependent on them not like being in a position where they have to throw. But he's been really, really good these last 2 weeks, as much as I hate it, or last 3 weeks, as much as I hate it. So he's been getting plenty of volume. I'm not sure that Indianapolis really obviously they can score a bunch of points, but I don't know if they're going to come in and just like destroy them like everybody thinks they will. T.Y. Hilton is questionable this week, didn't practice Thursday. He'll probably play. He's missed practice, but he'll probably play, and he always shreds the Titans. Always, always, always shreds the Titans because they play that stupid zone defense that he just runs straight through like a freaking butter knife. So T.Y. Hilton at 11K is probably the best play on this slate. Marlon Mack at 9,600 if you think that Indianapolis is going to hold a lead over Tennessee, which is a totally fair thought. He's a really, really good play. The thing here is that you can play the passing game on either side. You can play Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton, Blaine Gabbert, and Corey Davis. You can play them, Eric Ebron, whatever. But the running back situation is entirely dependent on who you think is going to win this game and if you think they're going to win it handedly. And at that point, I would direct you to sports betting instead of playing DFS, because if you think you know who's going to win the game, you might as well just go bet on the game.
So true. Yeah, it's a close game. I think both the running backs, Henry and Mack, a lot of people probably won't have them both. I think that's an interesting way to go on this one. I think Henry will be very popular, Mack not as much. So I think that's very enticing. I love T.Y. Hilton. It's something he talked about earlier this year, though. When that Colts offense goes on the road, there are some struggles there. The Tennessee defense has played really well at home. I like the Colts to win this game. I think they'll win by like a touchdown. But, hey, It's not a given at any point in time. I'd rather the Colts in the playoffs than Tennessee, if you want to go that route. But I echo pretty much everything you had to say there. All right, let's go through a quick position rundown, and we will be on our way here. As we like to do, at the quarterback position, James, Patrick Mahomes, Ben Roethlisberger, or Deshaun Watson?
If I had to rank him, it would be Ben Roethlisberger at the number one, and then Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes pretty much tied for number two. I like Watson's rushing upside more, but yeah, they're tied for number two.
All right, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, or Aaron Rodgers?
No, Aaron Rodgers at 6,300. Just because if Devontae Adams is healthy, I think Aaron Rodgers tries his ass off this game to just get him 150 yards. So that's at least halfway to the bonus, and I'll take that for 6,300.
Totally agree with you there. I think if Devontae Adams suits up, Rodgers could be a very nice value at $6,300. Jared Goff or Russell Wilson?
I'm going to go with Russell Wilson. I just think that he has a bigger part of that offense. He's been hyper efficient. He's always really good in December.
Russell Wilson or Josh Allen?
Russell Wilson, because Josh Allen is trash, but it's closer than you'd think.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to ask it, because it's weirdly closer. Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold?
Probably say Sam Darnold. He's been really good. I mean, I think both of them have been good, but New England is way more beatable than Baltimore is. And the Jets, I think, will probably run like 55, 60 plays. And I don't know that Cleveland will run more than 40.
All right. Running back position. We kind of mentioned most of these expensive guys are kind of question marks. So I'm going to name off a couple guys that are $7,500 and above. You have James Conner, you have Saquon Barkley, and you have, I'll say, Ezekiel Elliott. Rank those three, because basically I didn't include McCaffrey, Gurley, or Gordon because we figure they're going to kind of be more of an iffy role. So Conner, Barkley, Elliott.
It's got to be James Conner number one, because I think the Pittsburgh scores a lot of points. And then I think it's probably Saquon Barkley number two, because I think that the Giants are stupid enough to play him the entire game with nothing to play for. With Ezekiel Elliott being number three, just because we know that Dallas doesn't want to play their starters.
Yeah. Let's get into the 6K range where you start to see a lot more running backs that are in play. I got Joe Mixon at 6,700, Chris Carson at 65, Dalvin Cook at 63. What do you like there?
Give me Chris Carson. I'll go as far as to say that Chris Carson's the best running back play on this slate, and it's not really close for me, so just lock him into your lineups. And then it'll be Joe Mixon and then Dalvin Cook. I think that Mixon has more upside than people think here. You can make a really nice lineup with two $700 running backs.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that Carson's probably the top running back, because in weeks pretty much 1 through 16, we've been all about it getting at least one stud. I don't think you need to this week. Like, you can do a lot without it. As you go farther down, you got the likes of CJ Anderson at $5,400 or David Johnson at $57.
Oh, this is going to hurt to say, but CJ Anderson at $5,400 is probably just as good of a play. David Johnson is still probably going to touch the ball 13 to 15 times, but he's just been bad. I think David Johnson in cash, CJ Anderson in GPPs.
What about Elijah McGuire, Sony Michel?
Elijah McGuire has more receiving upside. Sony Michel doesn't ever catch the ball. So for 5,300, I think that you have a higher floor in Elijah McGuire, but I think that Sony Michel is just as good of a play. It's pretty much a tie for me. Elijah McGuire has a little bit more upside.
Okay, we got Jeff Wilson Jr. at $4,400. Are there anybody else down here in the 4Ks and below you're looking at? I know we've mentioned a few, but without going over all of them, are there any other ones you're looking at down here?
You can take a shot on Gus
Edwards.
I think you can take a shot on Gus Edwards down there. Jalen Richard if you're desperate in cash, but I don't think that he's a good GPP play. Chris Thompson, maybe, but not really. I mean, you're pretty much paying in that mid-range for running backs this week.
All right, wide receiver position. If you're paying up top and they're both playing, they're questionable now. Do you go Antonio Brown or Julio Jones?
Oh, Antonio Brown, 100%.
Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster.
Both. Juju Smith-Schuster, if you have the money to get up to Antonio Brown, pay for him. But if you don't, then Juju.
Do you have both Pittsburgh guys over DeAndre Hopkins?
Yes. But it's close between Juju and Hopkins. It's not close between Brown and Hopkins.
Do you have both Pittsburgh guys over Devontae Adams?
No, I have Antonio Brown over Devontae Adams, but Devontae Adams over Smith-Schuster. Actually, it's close between Adams and Antonio Brown. If Adams plays, he's the best player on the slate at wide receiver.
Excellent. All right, dropping below 8K now. You got guys like Julian Edelman, Robert Woods. Who you like there?
Julian Edelman and cash, and Robert Woods and fees.
All right, going down low sixes. Robert Woods or Doug Baldwin?
I'm going to go with Robert. No. It's so close. Because these situations are just, so hard to gauge. I think that Robert Woods plays the whole game, so I'll go with Robert Woods. Doug Baldwin, I just worry about his actual volume. So I'm going to say Robert Woods, but I know that Doug Baldwin's going to go off because I said it.
All right. Alshon Jeffrey or Robbie Anderson?
I'm going to go with Alshon Jeffrey. Nick Foles loves him.
Yeah, he does love him quite a bit. Farther down we look here, we got Sterling Shepard or Calvin Ridley.
I'm going to go with if Julio Jones is out, it's got to be Calvin Ridley. But if Julio Jones is in, I guess I'll go with Sterling Shepard at 5,400 and hope that Eli Manning plays the whole game.
All right, a few more farther down. You got Hamilton at 5K for the Broncos. You got Fitzgerald. You got Jordy Nelson at 49, Sanu at 48. Anybody else really striking your fancy down there?
Yeah, I mean, DJ Moore at 4,500 seems interesting. Tim Patrick at 4,300 seems interesting, but I'd rather just go to Sean Hamilton at 5K. Unless there's an injury, if Julio Jones doesn't play, then Mohamed Sanu is just as good of a play as Deshaun Hamilton. And like you said, I echo your sentiment on Jordy Nelson. He's been really, really good over the last 4 weeks. So I don't mind him at all at 4,900.
All right, tight end position. We've kind of talked about him. Let's just reiterate it for everybody. You got Kelsey, Ertz, and Kittle up top. I got it. Ertz, Kelsey, Kittle. What do you have?
I'm probably Ertz, Kelsey, Kittle as well.
Okay. You drop down. You got guys like Evan Ingram, Rob Gronkowski. It's always a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'll just keep it simple. What else do you like at the tight end position?
David Njoku is interesting at 3,700. CJ Uzomah, like you mentioned earlier, 3,500 is a good play. Herndon at 3,400 is a good play as well. But don't play Herndon if you already have Robbie Anderson. I wouldn't be stacking the Jets. So, yeah, I'd rather pay up at tight end, but there are some options you can have lower.
Definitely. When we go to defense now, there's going to be a lot of, lopsided affairs. You got Pittsburgh and you got Seattle, you got the Rams. A lot of angles to look at here and there. The Patriots, who got a lot of people in, only $3,100. I like the Ravens a lot at 29. And then there'll be some punts you can look at. This is where Kansas City at 26. I know we played them when they were cheap in Oakland. They could come into play. Even Green Bay against Detroit at 24 could be interesting. There's a lot of other ones down here that'll kind of pop up as news comes out throughout the week. But what are you liking at defense?
I really like the Ravens at 2,900. I think that they'll do really well to stop Baker Mayfield, and I just think that's a nice price for them. You get one of the better defenses in the NFL playing at home in a game they have to win, so I really like that. Packers at home against Detroit, I think that's fine as well. Minnesota at home against Chicago. If Chicago's not going to play their starters the entire time at 2,500, I think the Vikings defense is probably pretty good, but I'm not sure why you would really need to get away from the Ravens at 2,900. That just seems like a pretty good price for them.
Yep, Ravens seem like the way to go. But that'll wrap us up this week, James. 17 weeks in the book. Any final thoughts? Any final words?
Yeah, actually, I forgot to mention the Giants are only 2,100, and Dallas is not going to play their starters. So that's a really nice price as well.
Perfect. With that being said, check out James on Twitter at Pater_DFS. I'm at BDentric, and feel free to ask us for help throughout the week with everything we got going on. We will probably be back for the playoffs for at least 1 week. We'll see how it goes. We'll chat about it. I remember we did a week or two last year, but James, it's been fun. Week 17 in the books. Everybody check us out on Twitter at 2PointConv and go give us a rating and review on iTunes. We'd much, much appreciate it. But until then, catch you guys later.
Absolutely.